Hello, and welcome to another episode of Break the Cycle with me, your host, Joshua Smith. I hope everyone is having a wonderful Monday. Yes, the weekend's over. It's back to work. I know it sucks, but you will make it. I promise. And you got another weekend coming around soon. I am not going to be doing a members only show tonight. It is my daughter's, my 16, now 17-year-old daughter's birthday. So we're going to do the show, and then I'm going to get up there and see if we can't spend a little time together. You guys know how it is. It's a madhouse here, and there's a birthday every week, it feels like, truly. But I do enjoy spending them with the kids. We got a great show for you guys tonight, of course, but let's start off with some sponsors. We got toplobster.com, the man, the myth, the legend, my good friend and partner on Break the Cycle, where you can get this great Dr. Ron Paul for Congress 1974 shirt that you see me wearing today by using BTC at checkout for a 10% discount, or you can join the Patreon, subscribe star, or become a member of this here YouTube channel under all of my videos by hitting the join link for about $5 a month. You can get into the private Discord server where you can get all of Top Lobster's new gear, hand-drawn, awesome stuff, hats, backpacks, hoodies, shirts, all that stuff, up to 2 weeks before it goes to the general public at a 30% discount. Big discount, really makes a difference. If you're doing a small monthly contribution to the show, it really pays for itself if you're buying Top Lobster gear. Absolutely. And of course, executive producers of the show, anthemplanning.com. For all your emergency and crisis planning needs. Check them out today. See what they can do for your business, home, or personal life. They are doing a wonderful job that the government has historically sucked at. Much cheaper and much more efficiently. Seriously, if you own a business, go check them out as soon as the show's over. Anthemplanning.com. They're going to make your life easier. I promise you. It's worth it. And they finally got some business for my show. They were telling me when I had Amy Lepore on last week that they finally got some business for my show. And that makes me really happy. You know, you guys are doing great work. It benefits me. It benefits them. It benefits you. It's a win-win for everybody. So guys, like I said, we got a great show for you tonight. I have been excited about you guys know how excited I get about doing my show. It's like my one time away from my family and my work and all that stuff. And I get really excited about hanging out with all these great people. I've had NBA champions on the show and actors and all kinds of great stuff. But this show really is probably one of the most exciting shows for me ever. We've all seen the clip of Jody Plauche doing, exacting his revenge on the man who hurt his child. Many of us who are fathers probably feel like we would do the same thing if faced with that situation. I know as somebody who's raising, 5 girls and 2 boys, I would also feel like doing something like that. But it got me to thinking after seeing this clip so many times over the years, there's a story behind that. There's Gary and there's Jody and there's, this horrible person, and something happened there, and all we see is this clip. So I started digging, I started getting into things, and I found Jody, and I started reading about him. I started reading about his life, and in a lot of situations like this, including some of my own personal stuff that's happened to me, things that have happened to friends and family members, it doesn't always turn out very positive, and I saw that Jody was using his pain to exact positivity around the country and be an advocate for victims. In fact, he did time on the Men Against Sexual Violence Committee, and in 2004, he was named the Survivor Activist of the Year. He is the author of the book Why Gary Why, that chronicles all this stuff, including his father and the abuse and the kidnapping and everything. He is Mr. Jody Plauche. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Awesome. Thank you. Like I said before we started the show, man, I really appreciate you coming on and taking time to hang out with us. It really means a ton to me. So you got this book, Why Gary Why. You were the kid in the 80s that we saw in the news. You were all over. You were in like Teen Beat magazine and everything. I mean, it had to be crazy.
I think it was Star magazine. I don't think I was quite Teen Beat material.
Okay. Star magazine.
It was more tabloid.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, it was crazy. I mean, it had to be insane. You were 11 years old at the time. And it had to be just absolutely, you're dealing with this painful situation. Now you're all over the news. Your dad's all over the news. I mean, let's take it back a little bit though. So you started a karate class. And
when I was in fifth grade.
Fifth grade. And what happened from there, man? I mean, how did this terrible situation start?
Well, when we started taking karate from Jeff Doucette, he explained to us that he had like a fighting team. They would put a competitive fighting team. They would fight in tournaments in Houston, in New Orleans, kind of like the Karate Kid. And after a few, I guess probably months of working out, Jeff was like, "Hey, your kid's got potential." Telling my parents, your kid's got potential. They should consider fighting in the tournaments with us. And so the initial trip to Houston, I didn't go. It was probably March of 1983. I had an all-star basketball tournament, so me and my dad stayed back, and my little brother and my older brother went to Houston to a karate tournament. And when they came back, they just talked about how awesome the fights were, the black belts they hit in the face, and they went to Astroworld, they went to a mall, and it just sounded like a great trip. So the next time they went to Houston, my dad came. So we all went, and so it was just Jeff. He slowly groomed my family to where we would trust him. And so after several months of getting kind of close, that's when he started to actually move in with the sexual stuff. And it was all at the beginning, it was all nonchalant, something that he could have joked or could have said it was an accident in case I would have responded negatively. But I guess I had the reaction of being quiet and shutting down, and that's the reaction he was looking for. And so he started, it was on a trip in Houston. He told me, "Here," and in the van in front of all the kids. I mean, there's like 12 kids in the van. And he whispers in my ear that he was going to perform oral sex on me that night. Now at this time, I'm 10 years old, so I don't know why he would want to do that. Like, I mean, that's an insult. We would tell people, "Hey, you know what?" So everyone went to bed that night. He went under the covers. And so that was April. So for the next month, he kind of would perform oral sex on me. And then next month in May is when he actually said, "Now I'm going to have sex with you." He didn't quite put it like that, and so then pretty much every day for the leading up to the kidnapping, he would perform oral sex on me, and then he'd have sex with me, and then that would be it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just terrible, terrible shit. I can't imagine. I have my own stories, nothing like that. I mean, nothing like that. But, I mean, a lot of people don't understand that this isn't something that just happens. I mean, people, they don't just one day say, "Hey, I'm going to do this." There's this grooming phase, right?
Oh, they put an investment into it. I mean, it's a time committed investment. Grooming the kid and the parents and the family members and everybody in the karate school. Everybody thought this guy was a wonderful person. And it turns out he was one of the biggest pieces of shit ever. Sorry, sure. I hope I couldn't say that.
No, absolutely. This is not a family friendly family show. I hope that most people don't have their children watch the show. I cuss all the time and stuff too, so it's totally cool. And for this is probably some trigger warning here. This conversation is probably going to be hard for some people who have faced abuse themselves. So.
Now, see, I don't have kids, but I would say get the kids in the room, let them listen.
Sure. Oh, this show, absolutely, yeah.
Show it to them and then have a discussion with them. Now, again, if they're 4 or 5, you don't want to, but I mean, if they're 8, 9, 10 years old, let them listen. I mean, if I could experience it and be okay, I'm sure they can hear it and be all right.
Yeah, absolutely. So you got to this point where you're being repeatedly abused. It's horrible. I'm sure it was horrible for you. We don't have to get into the psyche of it. I'm sure as an 11-year-old kid, you're terrified. I mean, what led up to this kidnapping? I mean, was there some kind of thoughts that he was going to be caught? I mean, how did that go?
All right, so in the summer of '83, Jeff came up with this idea to sell these LSU mugs, these commemorative mugs. But again, not taking into consideration, you need LSU's licensing rights to do it. You can't just go print mugs up and sell them, but that's what he did. And so he lost some money there. And then he came up with this idea for a bandana like the Pittsburgh Terrible Towel, but it was going to be called an LSU Tiger Rag. And I actually still have one. I mean, but my sister got it for me on eBay years later. But he owed the guy who owned a convenience store. He owned several convenience stores around the area, and he owed him the second shipment of the bandanas. He had ordered let's say 10,000 bandanas, and Jeff never delivered the bandanas. And so the guy wanted the 10,000 he gave Jeff up front, for the first half of the bandanas. He wanted his money back or the bandanas, and Jeff had neither. And so that was him leaving. Colin, that was him leaving Baton Rouge to go to avoid paying money, and he probably would have went to jail. He probably would have gotten sentenced to some fine and probation for writing bad checks, because that's what he did that as well. So the law was coming down on him, and he was just leaving town to avoid prosecution. And since I was his love interest for the past year, he just decided he was going to take me with him.
That's wild, man. And I mean, at this point, I'm sure I can only imagine where your brain was at, but I mean, what was going through your head as you're being taken? I mean, you knew it was wrong. I mean, I've heard you talk in other interviews. You knew it was wrong and stuff like that, but
right. I knew that he was going to get in trouble for taking me, but I also knew I didn't really have much of a choice. I didn't feel like I was in a position to tell him no, and so I just went along with it.
Sure, absolutely. So you chronicle a lot of the stuff. I mean, and listen, if you're going to buy the book, you should buy the book Why Gary Why. Written by Jody, but you chronicle a lot of the stuff in the book.
I do. I chronicle it, and I also, when I graduated from LSU, I got a job up in Pennsylvania working at a place called Victim Services Center of Montgomery County, which is just outside of Philadelphia. Sure. And I worked there for 7 years doing education programs, safety education, prevention, risk reduction programs. So there's a lot of that 7 years of experience as working a crisis hotline, answering phone calls. So I took all my experience, personal, professional, and educational, and I've tried to put it all together. And I think I came up with a book with a lot of good information that tells a compelling story and is entertaining. If you go read one of the comments on the Amazon, someone said that this book is funny, like not what you're expecting here, but This book is funny. And so I meant it to be that way. I wanted to reflect my personality and, in a way, my dad's personality, because we were very similar. And I think we were able to portray that. And it's got a lot of really, really good information for parents.
Sure. Yeah. And that's what that's what I would want to talk about with the people that are watching. I mean, it's very informational. It's got a lot of insight for victims, especially. It's got some humor in it. It's got some really heartfelt family stuff in it too, which I thought was great to, get to know more about you and your family, your mom and dad, and even your grandparents, and being picked up by them and stuff. But, I think for most people who know anything about the story or even have just seen the news clip, I mean, Gary is always the focal point, right, when it comes to a lot of this stuff, especially now. How was your relationship with your dad?
He died in 2014, but I mean, my relationship was great with him. I mean, we were fine.
Sure, absolutely. and I know you grew up between homes for a while and stuff like that, right?
No, my parents were separated in the summer of '83, but after the shooting, they got back together in the spring of '84. But no, I wasn't in no homes. My dad went and lived with his parents, and my mother and the 4 kids stayed at the house.
Sure. And so, I mean, okay, so you don't want to tell.
The only time I went to the home was when they arrested Jeff in California. They took me to the police station, the hospital. Then they took me to like this neglected child home facility where I stayed for a day, and then I flew home.
And that was the flight home, and you had to come home and see your parents. I mean, what's going through your head as you're coming back to your parents?
I really don't even know what I was thinking. I was just glad to be back home, really. And I get off the plane, and when I do, now I see my parents, and I see John Pasterek and a cameraman. John Pasterek still works to this day for WBRZ to cover my return home from being kidnapped. And it was 6 o'clock in the morning. I just left California like 1:10 in the morning, and I just woken up. I slept. It's the only time I've ever still slept on a flight, but I slept all the way home because I had a window seat and it was dark and I couldn't see nothing. And I was not too pleased to see a television camera there whenever I got to the airport. And at one point, my mother hugged me and she whispers in my ear, like, smile. She's like, smile. And I'm like, what are they doing here? And she's like, your dad called him, smile. Yeah. So I'm like, and then he puts the camera in my face. Like, what do you think about all this? I'm like, I don't know.
Like,
what are you doing here?
You're like, I'm 11, dude, and I just went through like the worst experience of my life. Can you alone?
It's so bad now they don't even name victims, but back then they're like at the airport. But in their defense, and my parents' defense, it just goes to show you how naive they were. The hospital report had not came back yet positive, sure. And I was still denying that Jeff had done anything to me. So my dad didn't know not to call the news. I mean, he had worked at that TV station for when he was in college or when he was younger, and so he knew a lot of the people. He would bowl with them. I mean, I went to bowling games when they would bowl like on Wednesday nights, and he was with all the off-camera people, because he was a cameraman,
Sure.
and so he still was friends with all those people. So that's how the camera eventually ended up at the airport the night that Jeff Doucette was returned, because they were doing a follow-up to my return, which was 2 weeks earlier.
Right.
That's why I wasn't at the airport, and that's why Daddy was able to be at the Baton Rouge airport. So they were just doing a follow-up story, and boom, they got pretty much their lead story for the next year and a half.
Oh yeah, and I mean it still makes the rounds every time you see a meme or anything like that. I mean, there's
every 3 weeks on Facebook, someone will tag me, and they're talking about it on another site, and it's getting 250,000 likes, and I mean it's just amazing.
Sure, absolutely, and so let's talk a little bit about what's so you're telling your dad, and as a father, I would like to think that that's probably the same thing that I would do. I mean, I don't think I could let somebody who harmed my child make it to court, let alone through the airport.
Well,
but I mean,
but let me ask you this question: how many kids you got?
7.
Okay, so think about those 7 kids. Yeah. Are you willing to go to jail for 20 years,
right,
and not be around them? So I let people know my dad put himself in a position to be prosecuted. Right. I mean, my dad very well could have gone to jail for 20 years.
He got very, very lucky very lucky.
Exactly. So I tell parents, be there for your child.
Yeah, and I don't know if people know that. I mean, he didn't do a day of jail time for that, right?
Well, he shot him on a Friday night, and he couldn't post bail till Monday morning. Then once he posted bail Monday morning, he went to a psych facility for about 3 weeks to a month, and then he came back home, and that was it.
And he had he was on probation and a suspended sentence or something like that, right?
They suspended his sentence. He was on probation for 5 years, and he had to do 300 hours of community service. And I like to tell people he had to do 300 hours of more community service because he already did the community service.
He already did the community a very big service. Absolutely. It's and I've been talking about this show quite a bit on my shows leading up to this one, and I say the same thing every time. I don't like take pleasure in watching people die, but that's one of those clips, man. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, yeah, like it doesn't make me so upset.
Have you ever seen an unedited clip?
Is there an unedited clip?
Is there? All right, so my older brother doesn't know I'm on the phone, or we're doing an interview,
sure,
and he keeps calling me because he wants to talk about the Peyton Manning and Eli game. Can I go tell my mother to call him and tell him to stop calling me?
Yeah, absolutely. Please do.
Do like a quick promo and then I'll do like that.
Hey, we got brothers talking football, man. You know that's good. Hey, listen, my brother does that all the time during the show too. He calls me about football. He always wants to talk about his 49ers. I'm not a 49ers fan, but I grew up in the Bay, so I get it. I understand it. This is Mike Rovell. This is hard stuff to listen to, man. I know it is. And the book, there's parts of the book that are very, very hard to read too. But I mean, it's parts that you need to read for sure. Definitely check it out. Go order the book if you can. Called Why Gary Why. Hey man, my brother and I call each other about football all the time too, bro.
Well, no, I mean, normally we'd probably be on the phone watching it together, but I have the interview, so I have my TV on pause, and he keeps calling me because I'm sure Peyton said something funny, but I mean, I'll have to watch it later and catch up with him at half.
Yeah, absolutely. But, I'm a Cowboys fan, and my brother's a Niners fan, so most of ours are fights.
So did I give it? So you saw that I'm wearing shorts, right? See, I thought I'd hide everything, put on a collared shirt, but look what I got. I'm gonna show you this.
I got shorts on too, man.
Look, can you see what I got on?
Oh
right
yeah,
here?
There we go. You're wearing a Saints polo and a Cowboys shorts.
But these are legit, authentic, 100% Dallas Cowboy football player issued shorts.
Oh, nice.
My cousin's married to Nick Folk, who's the kicker for the New England Patriots, and he kicked for the Cowboys for a while. And he had a bag of old cleats and old shorts and stuff. And so I took my little Jerry Jones bought shorts, and this is kind of like my lounge clothes. So every day when I come home, I put my Dallas Cowboys shorts on, or my LSU shorts on, and that's it. Now I'm not a Cowboys fan, and I actually. When you get to the end, go read the last 3 chapters because I do talk about the Cowboys because I lived in Valley Ranch right across the street from where they practiced at for 2 years. I'd see them every day. Yeah. Like I would see them every day. I'd hang out with Charles Haley, and it was so I don't want to say, hold on. No, we got some issues going on right here. No. So my mother likes to tape 900 shows.
Sure.
Okay. So if I'm in the back watching a show and I put it on pause, and my little brother lives across the street, so I go across the street to see my little brother. I go spend 20 minutes with him. I'll come back, and if too many shows are set to record, it'll flip my channel and go to what she wanted. And I'm sitting here with my TV on pause, and I just thought it said record or don't record. No, I get one channel.
You're messing up my football, Mom. Come on.
I get one channel. I get one channel.
Yeah, that's you're from Louisiana originally though, right?
Yeah, I'm from Baton Rouge. Born in Baton Rouge, and I live here right now. Nice. I've lived 3 years in Irving, Texas, and I lived 7 years in Pennsylvania. The rest of the time I've been here.
And you went to school in Pennsylvania, right?
No, I went to school in Irving, Texas.
Oh, it was Texas that you went to school. That's right.
Yeah, then I came back to LSU and graduated, and it was after that I moved back to Irving for another year, and then in '98 I moved to Pennsylvania to 2005.
Sure. Okay, so let's get back to talking about the Gary situation.
The unedited version. Have you seen?
Yes. No, I mean I've only seen what's online. That's all I've ever seen.
Can you broadcast from your computer like what you're watching if you could pull it up and so your people can watch it together?
Oh, I can't on this channel.
You can't do that? Okay.
No, on this channel. Unfortunately, they'll shut me down for that shit on this channel because I don't have like the certain privileges to play like death and stuff.
Okay. If you go to all right, so if anybody watching, go to my website jodyplauche.net, and there's a video link, and in there I have the unedited video where it's just a raw footage, and that's where the cameraman about 1 minute and 4 seconds after he started filming, and this is about 50 seconds after the shooting, you can see him change the tape. You can see where the tape kind of fizzles, and he took out the tape of the shooting and put in another tape. That way, if the cops wanted that tape, he was going to give them the extra footage, and he was going to take the shooting home to the news.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm sure he got big time paid for that shit, big time.
I hope so.
And it was God bless his soul. He usually when a gun goes off, you want to run, man. That man did not run.
He zoomed in.
He got the whole thing. It was great. I mean, God bless him. But I mean, what were the events like leading up to that day? I mean, with your dad, I mean, was he just an absolute wreck or what?
Well, he was. Like I said, so he worked for WBRZ Channel 2 here in Baton Rouge. That's a local ABC affiliate. And he also happened to drink at a restaurant which was about less than a half a mile from, right? Yes, the Cotton Club. Yeah. And so again, he knew him, he drank with him, and he was at the bar that Friday, and they asked him, they said, when are they bringing your boy Doucette back? And Daddy said, well, I think he's back already. He goes, but they're not going to tell me.
Yeah, of course.
And the guy goes, no, and then the program director, his name was Bob Shadell. He said, oh, no, he's not back yet. I'll go find out. So he went and called, and he said, hey, he'll be back in scheduled at 9:08 tonight. And so my dad had that information. And my grandparents came to pick us up that afternoon and took us out to False River, which is about 45 minutes away. It's a lake. It's an oxbow lake from the Mississippi River, but it's a nice little area. And we were out there, and that's where we went when Daddy had us on the weekends, as this was Daddy's weekend to have us. But having that information, he drove all the way out to the river. He made it about 3 miles from the camp, and he turned around and he drove back out to the airport. And that's when he saw the TV cameras, and that's why he went and got on the phone. So he figured that he'd walk by the TV cameras and he'd get him then. But then Mike Barnett comes out. He was a major with the sheriff's department. He was like, my dad went to middle school with him, high school with him. He and my mom dated for 9 months before my mother even knew my dad. So the first person she called when I was kidnapped was Mike Barnett, because he worked for the sheriff's office. And Mike Barnett comes walking out, and you could see him turn around back to the camera and wave Jeff and Bud. All right, it's clear. Because there were people who had lined up behind the camera to see, oh, what's going on here? And Mike Barnett told me, and this was probably earlier this year, he told me, he goes, I'm sitting there, and he goes, I'm walking. He goes, I'm hungover. He goes, me and Bud stayed up all night drinking the night before. We're walking through the Baton Rouge airport. He said, they got these people behind the camera. I'm sitting there looking, and I'm thinking, they're wondering, who's coming around the corner. And he said, it's two drunks and a child molester. And then he said, by the time that thought hit his head, he heard bam. And that's when he turned around and saw my dad standing there. And that's when he yelled, Gary, why, Gary? And he ran over, and he actually shielded my dad from Bud Connor, the other police officer, because Bud would have shot my dad if Mike hadn't done that.
Sure. Well, and let's be honest, your dad had amazing muzzle control. There's no doubt about that. It was really perfect. But I also read a little bit about his phone. He was actually having a phone conversation during this.
Yes, he was talking to his best friend.
And what was he saying to him?
At first, he saw Mike Barnett, and he told his friend, "Oh, they must have taken him out a different way. I don't see him," because Mike was there. And then Mike gave the signal to come on, and then the camera lights came on. Well, when the camera lights came on, that's when my dad knew he was coming. That's when he reached in his boot, and if you look at his right pant leg, you'll see it's lifted. He reached in his boot, and he was describing the scene to his best friend. He said, "I'm getting the gun out of my boot." He said, "You're going to hear the shot," and he turned around and shot him. And then he turned around and hung up the phone.
Wild, man. Yeah, he hung up the phone, and then he wasn't trying to shoot no more. He knew he did the job. I think he knew right away, probably. But what were your feelings on this? I have, as someone who was abused as a child, I want to say that, like, I would be happy, but I mean, you had all kinds of different feelings going on, I'm sure. I mean, what were you thinking about it?
Well, okay, obviously I didn't want Jeff to be molesting me. I was happy that was going to happen. I actually was looking forward to Jeff spending the rest of his life in a penitentiary. Sure. That's what I wanted. And even to this day, I still think I would have better satisfaction. I don't know. I think I probably still have better satisfaction if he was in prison. He probably wouldn't have lasted this long.
No.
But, but then again, how many millions of people have watched his death on YouTube? So, I mean, if the punishment fits the crime, I think it's pretty appropriate.
I mean, it does provide a lot of joy to fathers around the country and maybe the world. Every couple days I'll go type in my dad's name in Twitter, and people are constantly bringing him up. Where's Gary Plauche when you need him? We need Gary Plauche. Someone put yesterday, paging Gary Plauche. Gary Plauche, please pick up the white phone. And I actually commented back on that one. And I said, "Don't you mean the payphone?" That was great. I think my favorite Gary Plauche meme is definitely the "We can't expect God to do all the work." That's my favorite one. I love it to death. I can't imagine what it would be like as an 11-year-old to see on the news your father do this thing. Like, I couldn't, but at the same time, I feel like, he probably thought there was a monster out there and he needed to make him disappear, man.
Yeah, that's pretty. I mean, like I said, my dad, he was raised Catholic, and he believes in the 10 Commandments. I guess maybe other than the "don't cheat on your wife" one, but it bothered him that he had killed a person, but it was almost like if he couldn't have lived with himself for not doing it. He would have felt like a failure as a parent. And also, he was off his rocker. I mean, everyone sees it and they go, "Oh, yeah, wait, go Gary." But Gary was pretty nuts at the time. Most people in their sane mind don't shoot someone 10 feet from a TV camera.
Right. Yeah, he had complete reckless abandon when it came to what his outcome would be, for sure.
He didn't think he was making it out that night, so he didn't care.
Yeah. He was just going to go avenge his son, which, I don't know, man. My fiance's in the chat. She wants to know, did you go back to a quote unquote normal life after all this? I mean, when you were a child, sports, any of that kind of stuff, school?
Other than everybody going, that's the kid that was kidnapped, and that's the guy that shot the guy. Other than that, yeah, I went back. I was my senior year, I was a 4-sport letterman. I was the offensive MVP of our district in football. I was all district at second base in baseball. I was nominated for Athlete of the Year in the East Baton Rouge Parish, and I lost. And I addressed this in the book too, but I also lost to a classmate of mine who we had gone to school since 7th grade together. And she ended up playing in 5 Olympics, playing volleyball in 5 Olympics. Wow. So that kind of softened the blow, knowing that, yeah, she was a pretty good athlete.
It's funny. I was a wrestler. I wrestled for like 14 years. It's, my sport. I started when I was 4 years old. And there's this family in my city where I'm from called the Unpingos. They had like 12 kids, and they all wrestled. All the girls, all the boys, everyone wrestled. And there was one, Rosemary. She's 145-pound senior when I was a freshman. And I was, 200 pounds. I wrestled 180s and then got down to 160s eventually. But she used to throw me around the mat all over the place, dude. Just beat the shit out of me. And it was kind of emasculating at the time. But then she ended up like getting the first invite for women's exhibition wrestling in the Olympics. Like, she was amazing. So, it happens. Go ahead. Were you gonna say something?
No,
Oh, okay.
I was agreeing. Yeah, yeah. I mean, life just kind of almost went right back to normal. I
Yeah.
mean, we had I mean, it was on the news, but I mean, that wasn't no big deal. I'd be riding in seventh grade. I'd be riding to school on the bus, and we had a radio, and it'd be like, in the news today, Gary Plauche has a hearing, and they're going to be talking about the evidence on uh, his son being molested. And I'm like, oh God. But the kids, I guess their parents sat them down and had a talk with them and said, hey, don't pick on Jody, don't say nothing about that, because really only one kid ever said anything to me, and that was in PE class. And he said, well, at least I wasn't effed in the booty by Jeff Doucette. And that guy's in jail right now for child molestation.
Oh, of course he is. Of course he is. Fucker. Yeah. So, I mean, what was it like having the media hounding you and all that stuff, man? I mean, was it that crazy?
Immediately when the shooting happened, my mother loaded us up, and we went to Biloxi and stayed with my godfather for a week. So we got out of Dodge. So by the time we got back, it was pretty, they knew we weren't talking. The judge had put a gag order that we couldn't talk. So it just, just life is normal. I went back to playing sports. I mean, seventh grade, I'm playing football. I played on the basketball team. I was a starter in seventh grade in middle school. I played summer baseball. So, I mean, I just went back to being a normal 12, 13-year-old.
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, and so your father passed away in 2014. I read a little bit about that prior to, on he's got a Wikipedia page and stuff, but,
who do you think wrote it?
Was it you or you? So I'm reading your writing anyways.
No. So somebody had written it, and this is probably about over 10 years ago. He was still alive, but so I sat down one day and I fixed everything that they had wrong. I fixed. And I called my brother and I said, hey, go read Daddy's Wikipedia page. And he called me back and he said, the one that kept calling me while we're doing the interview, he called me up and he goes, oh my God. He goes, it's like this person lived with us. I said, yeah, that's because I went and fixed everything that was wrong.
Because he did live with us, actually.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. And so, I mean, prior to his passing, I mean, did he ever show any like regret over what he did at all?
I mean, there would be times where he might get drunk or something and get a little emotional and be like, I'm not a bad guy. Everybody thinks I'm a murderer. And they want me to be the hero. But I mean, so there were times when he would get like that. But I mean, that wasn't that often.
Sure. Well, I assure you that I don't know anybody who thinks he's a murderer. Everyone that I know pretty much hails him as a hero. But like I said, it's interesting because nobody ever, back then, I'm sure your story was being played on all the news channels, but now, it's not the main focus of the story, and it should be. I mean, it really should be that, this horrible thing happened, and there's victims out there today and every day that are going through the same kind of thing. And, I think the most inspiring thing of this whole story, of this terrible story, is that you came out the other side an advocate and interested in helping people. You've kept a joyful persona, and everyone in the chat's talking about how full of joy you are. I think that's great. And it's true. Yeah, I mean, you're, a lot of times, maybe at least half the time in situations like this, the person can't ever get over it. There's a high suicide rate. There's drug and alcohol abuse. I mean, how did you come out and become the man you are?
I learned to properly use, not abuse alcohol. No, I'm kidding.
Sure.
But no, a lot of people, they're fed this story that once you're victimized, you can't overcome. And I don't like that narrative.
Right.
And I recently, after 2 years, got my first negative review on Amazon. And this woman, I think her name was Crystal. Y'all can go read it, and I own it. I mean, I put it on Facebook. I was like, hey, y'all, look, she didn't like it. And she basically said that my book was just me bragging about how I overcame everything. And I'm like, why wouldn't I?
Right.
And so, like I said, I owned it. I put it up on Facebook. I let people comment on it. And someone made a comment like, oh, Crystal can, kiss off or something like that. I said, no. I said, look, I still respect what trauma led Crystal to be interested in reading my book. And I'm actually bothered that she's not in a place where she can appreciate the journey that I went through.
Right.
Because obviously she hasn't made that journey or gone through that process, and hopefully she gets there one day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's, a lot of people do a lot of amazing feats. I think getting over what you went through and becoming the person that you've become today and helping the people, I'm sure endless amounts of people that you've helped, that's something that should be bragged about and should be talked about, because it's going to help others learn how to do the same thing, right?
Well, that's how it started. All right. So when I was 18, I got a phone call from a producer. Her name was Penny Price from the Geraldo Rivera talk show, daytime talk show. And I looked at it as like a free trip to New York. Let's go. Let's go on a show. Let's go get a free trip to New York. So me and Daddy flew up to New York and we went and we filmed the show. And that was in April and the show aired in June. And then shortly after the show aired, I got a call from Mike Barnett. And he said, look, Jody, he goes, this is going to be in the papers. It's going to be on the news. I want you to hear it from me first. He said, but we just arrested this pastor who had been molesting these two boys. And one of the boys saw you on Geraldo, and then he came forward after that. And that was the moment when I really realized, wow, I could take something bad that happened to me and hopefully turn it into something positive and make a difference for other people. And I received a letter from this woman after that show aired. And that's when I was like, okay, I know what I want to do now. I want to let people know that they can survive, they can move past sexual abuse, and they can be okay. It's a process and you got to work through it, but you can come through that other side.
Sure. So I mean, so that was like the starting point for you. Like, I want to help people. I want to do this. So what were the next steps after that for you, man? I mean, how did you end up, sitting on these councils and getting these activist awards and stuff?
So in 92, me and my friend decided, because I had kind of shared with him, he's the one that wrote the foreword. If you read the foreward,
yep.
I kind of shared with
Beautiful
him.
Foreword, by the way. Beautiful. Absolutely.
No, he did a good job. Yeah. He's an excellent writer. Yeah. But I had kind of shared with him my plans. And my thought at the time was maybe open up a nonprofit for abused kids under, the Jody Plauche Center or whatever. And so I kind of shared with him my vision. And he was like, all right, well, we gotta volunteer. So we've started volunteering at this place in Dallas called the Family Place. And the Family Place is a battered women's shelter. Now, I'm strictly sexual assault. I try to stay away from domestic violence,
sure.
From DV, but we were working with the kids. So the mothers didn't really concern us. We didn't have anything to do with them. We'd take them to the movies, or we'd go to Six Flags with them. So it was something like that. So we were positive male role models for these children. And we did that for a good while. And then I moved back to Baton Rouge in 94. I enrolled back in LSU that fall, and I got into a service fraternity. We would do basically community service. We'd paint old classrooms. We took the blind kids to the skating ring, and we'd hold their hands and so that they walk with them. And that was a really cool organization. And that's where I met Lolo Hong and David Hagstead. And that's how I ended up going to Men Against Violence. So at LSU, I think it was 95, it kicked off. I was 2 years at Men Against Violence. And then I wanted to continue doing that. At the time when I graduated from LSU, my thought was maybe go do be an educator for Planned Parenthood. Not that I'm, support abortion, but there's a lot more services than just abortion that Planned Parenthood provides. And so I had really enjoyed my human sexuality class. So I thought that would be the direction I would go in. But then one night I just came home, I was on the computer, and I typed in child sexual abuse prevention in a search engine it was Career Path at the time. And you could only select 10 cities to search from. And I went with all the big ones, LA, Chicago, New York, Philadelphia. And I got a hit from the Philadelphia Inquirer. And that's how I ended up in Pennsylvania.
Wow. That's wild, man. What a great story. It's one of those things, man. It's like, it's such an intensely horrible tragedy, and then to turn it into something just so amazing. And how many kids do you think that you've worked with?
Oh, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't even come up with a guess. I don't know. Yeah, I've spoken to a lot of young kids and high school kids and college kids. College programs are my favorite.
Sure.
And a lot of times, though, the problem with I think 8th grade, 9th grade would probably be the best age to do these talks with them, because they're getting to the point to where they're getting interested in the other sex, and that's when you start, having the problems. Guys trying to get the girls drunk and all that kind of stuff. And so I think those are my discussions are really good with the high school and the college kids. And I would do an exercise. This was my favorite thing. And I would put on the little big sticky note. I would put name 4 females. Then I'd say name 7 males. And then I'd be like, please put down 3 characteristics of a rape victim. Then give me 3 characteristics of a perpetrator, and then how would, if someone disclosed rape to you, what would you do? Those 3 things you might suggest. And before, I'd put them in like groups of 3 or 4, and I'm like, you're not working as a team, you're working as a group, or you're working as individuals within a group. So y'all all have to write those answers down. And I gave them a cup, like a little Dixie cup of water. And I said, keep this with you at all times. And whenever y'all are done going to each station, I'm going to say rotate, you go to each station, and then you come back, and then we'll have a discussion. And so they would go in their groups, and they go to each station. And I would walk around, and I would go put food coloring in their water. Right. I was at Lower Marion High School one time, and that's where Kobe Bryant went, ironically enough. And I went up to the kid. He wasn't looking. I put the red food coloring in his water, and he goes, "Oh shit!"
Didn't even know.
I just got no. He goes, "Ah shit! I just got date raped." So he knew he figured out what the lesson was. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I would get over more than half of the class. I mean, right in front daylight. I mean, just in the middle. And so the lesson was, I didn't like spending time talking about Rohypnol or the quote unquote date rape drugs, because alcohol is the number 1 date rape drug. And that's the point I was trying to put forward to them. You can watch your drink all night long, but if you keep drinking, you're going to put yourself at a high risk of being victimized.
Right.
So that was, and then I didn't have to spend time on it. I would just say alcohol is the number 1 date rape drug. And then boom, that was it. I'd mention Rohypnol, GHB, and I'd move on. And then I would address each station. And then the 4 girls is 1 in 4, the stat at the time, 1 in 4 females, 1 in 7 males. And so I'd have them circle one of them. So then it just put in their head. I'm not saying that the person you circle is the victim, but of those 4 people, odds are one of them has been a victim.
Right.
And so it just gets home. And then you do a discussion with them. It's really good. I would get them up, and I'd say, all right, if you agree with me, go this way. If you disagree, go that way. I'd go, it's unfair for someone to change their mind in the middle of sex. Right. Boys would go this way, girls would go that way. And I'd be like, okay, why? And man, because once you get started, man, you can't just stop. And I'd tell them, so like, all right, so you're in the middle of it. You're on the couch. Y'all are in the middle of having sex, and you hear her daddy's car pull in the driveway. What are you going to do? Hold on, Pops. You know how this goes. I got to finish. No, you're going to pull your pants up, and you're going to jump out that back door. So don't give me this shit that you can't stop. And then I addressed it in the book. I kind of made it a little nasty in the book, but I was like, there could be a number of reasons why she says stop in the middle of sex. One could be maybe she was victimized when she was young, and maybe she had some kind of trigger, some type of flashback. I was like, maybe all of a sudden y'all aren't using protection, and she starts worrying about getting pregnant. So she's like, stop. I said, maybe it's something simple as she has to take a shit. I mean, there's a number of reasons that's not just to torture you that they might say, hey, wait, hold up. Right. And I was like, no matter what the reason is, you have to respect that. And it created good discussion between the males and the females. So I really enjoyed the high schools and the colleges.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, man. It's wild to think about. And you know, I had Eliza Blue on the show a couple weeks ago. She's a survivor of human trafficking, and is now a human trafficking advocate. And it's crazy to think, like, you know, if your own life isn't touched by it on a daily basis, you don't really think about it. But this is a huge problem. I mean, like the situation you've been through, other boys go through that to this day. It keeps happening, you know, and then as they get older, you have these other issues like the stuff you're talking about in high school and all that. But I mean, has it not been like kind of a disheartening job to do these things and hear about all these terrible situations happening all the time?
I tell people all the time, I love what I do. I mean, obviously with COVID, I haven't been doing it, but I love traveling and I love speaking in front of people, raising awareness. The only problem is the topic. Other than the topic, it's fun. I really enjoy getting out there. But I also, too, when I do a presentation, I share funny stories at the end so people don't want to go home and kill themselves. So like I'll go ahead and I'll share my number one with your audience. Okay. And this is in the book, so it's not a secret I'm giving away. It's like people are like, oh, if I tell you, I got to kill you. No, all right. So right after the whole church scandal happened, the Catholic church scandal in 2002 happened, I'm working at Victim Services Center, and I'm like, okay, our policy at Victim Services was we didn't discuss personal abuse. So if I went to a high school and one of the kids was like, were you ever victimized? My answer was, due to the fact that a lot of people who have been victimized go in this type of work, it's against our company's policy to disclose. But when I was in college, I was in an organization called Men Against Violence, and we would go out and we would do these programs, and I just want to continue doing that. And that would satisfy their answer.
Sure.
So traveling around, telling the story. So 2002, church scandal, I went to my boss, and I said, look, I understand we don't discuss personal shit, but, I think I can help raise awareness and bring good publicity to the agency. If you want to talk with the board and see if it's okay. The board, they were like, do it. That sounds good. So I called my friend at CNN, Art Harris, and I said, hey, Art, you want to do a story on me? And he was like, sure. So he flew a crew up. I had done a program at Villanova for this she was a professor at Villanova, but she was also a guidance counselor during the day at a school called Brook Elementary, which was about half a mile from where I lived in Royersford, Pennsylvania. So I contacted her and I said, look, can you get me one second grade class? I said, I'm doing a segment on CNN. They want to film me doing a presentation. I said, I like second grade because they're young and cute, but they're smarter than them first graders, but they're just as cute. And so she was like, I'll see. So she met with her principal, got permission. We had them all sign out like permission forms. And so the day of, I'm doing the presentation called Keeping Touches Safe and Healthy. And I've got the producer, the correspondent, the cameraman, the sound guy, the guidance counselor, the teacher, and the principal all watching me do this program.
Sure.
And they're filming, and I know they're filming it for CNN. So I'm going through and I talk about good touches. This is touches that people like, hugs and kisses and shaking hands and pats on backs. Then I talked about unsafe touches or bad touches. These are punches and kicks and stuff that hurt people. And then we have secret touches. This is when a grown-up touches a child's private part for no good reason. Boy, this little boy raises his hand. And I'm like, I normally wouldn't have called on him, but I honestly succumbed to the pressure. I was like, okay, you know what? What? And he goes, sometimes you can secret touch yourself.
Oh my God.
I was like, kid, I'm 30 and single. You don't have to tell me about that.
Yeah.
But so anyway, I was like, well, if you're touching yourself, it's not a secret. Like I didn't know what to say. So I went through it. But yeah, for him to do that in front of all them people, sometimes you can secret touch yourself. I'm like, man.
In front of CNN.
I've perfected it, boy.
Wow, man. That's wild, dude. Wild. I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine how to like answer that.
There's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah, just a thumbs up. Good job, buddy.
Well, you'd also get like, who's someone you know and trust that you could tell if anyone ever secret touches you. You get Santa Claus, you get my dog. But so you got to go, well, you want to tell someone you see every day. I mean, so you got to play with it a little bit. But again, and it's funny because I did a interview with Lexus Linkletter for the First Degree podcast, and her great-grandfather was Art Linkletter, and he came up with the show Kids Say the Darndest Things. Sure. And for years, I've been using Kids Saying the Darndest Things as my example for leading into that discussion of kids saying the darndest things. It's like me and my sister came to me, and my niece was probably 5, 6 years old, 7 years old. And my sister came to me and she's like, I kind of want to have that talk with Mason. What should I tell her? I was like, I said, I'll tell you what. I said, go get her. I said, I'll do the whole program for her. So we sit her down in front of me and I'm going through good touches, bad touches, secret touches, people you know and trust that you could tell. And I said, Mason, I said, if anyone ever secret touched you, who would you tell? And she said, Gigi. Well, Gigi's my dad.
Sure.
And I looked up at my sister. I said, no, Mason, you don't tell Gigi. Whatever you do, that's the one motherfucker you keep it from, is Gigi.
Oh, Jesus. Man, we all need a Gigi. All of us. We all need one, man. I'm a big fan. I think your dad's a hero, man. I think you're a hero. I think the work that you do is absolutely heroic after what you've been through, brother. But what you got coming on up next, man? What else you got going on for you?
I got a little local spot where I'm going to do. My brother had done this little local show, and I got that coming up Wednesday night. And then I signed up with a production company, and we've teamed up, and we're trying to pitch the book to become a documentary and a feature film. And so they're working on that. It's not going like I hoped.
Sure.
But all the stories of pedophiles in Hollywood, it doesn't surprise me they've never done the story where the guy gets off from killing the pedophile.
Yeah, they don't want to put that out there, man. These pedophiles in Hollywood, dude.
They don't want to glorify it. So I'm going to start putting the pressure on them. I think I'm going to start calling them all pedophiles if they don't do the film.
Hey, I already call them all pedophiles, whether they do the film or not, buddy. I was going to ask you if anybody from like Lifetime ever reached out to try to like a TV movie about any of this shit, or was it just too dark?
My friend Art Harris, I mean, there were a few times I quote unquote deputized him to go shop my story around. And I want to say there was 2 years where he did that. And he's like, oh, timing, gotta be timing. I'm like, yeah, Ellie Nessler kills the guy who molests her son, and she goes to jail. They did the Ellie Nessler story. Elizabeth Smart, she gets kidnapped, and her daddy don't do nothing. They do 3 shows on her.
There's quite a few media pieces out there about that, man.
But to get the guy that got off, they stayed away from that. Even though people are still talking about my dad 37 years later on Twitter, even though every time he goes viral, it's millions of views, they won't touch it.
That's just bizarre, man. It's the fucking the Hollywood pedophiles, man.
It's got to be.
I hate them.
It's got to be.
Our government, our government and media is just absolutely controlled by pedophiles. There's no doubt about it.
And you know what's funny is there's a book written about a black girl being raped by 2 white males, and that movie gets made.
Sure.
You know, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, I'm talking about Time to Kill by John Grisham.
Right.
But yeah, he was able to change it up enough to where, you know, it ain't glorifying the guy killing the pedophile.
Right.
And I intentionally, in my book, I quote, and I mentioned A Time to Kill. My ethics teacher in college told me I should sue John Grisham. He's like, you should sue him. I was like, that's my ethics teacher. But I'm like, nah.
I think I want to help you. I want to help you try to find a way to shop this movie and then hold pedophiles in Hollywood accountable if they don't make it. I'm going to find a way to do that.
Well, like I said, my business partners are doing it. They just sent me an email right before you sent me one earlier today, talking about the different companies that have turned it down to do a pitch for the documentary. And if you see our pitch deck and our little sizzle we got going, it's really good. Like, put it this way, I lived it, and when I watched it the first time, I was like, I want to see this.
Yeah. It's one of those stories, man. I mean, and like I said in the beginning, you know, we all know the story of Gary. I think the story of Jody needs to be told, and people need to hear it and understand that there's more to it than the phone booth incident, man.
Well, let me just say this too. And if you have, let's say you read the book. If you read the book, you're like, I saw the documentary. I've read the book. What I need to see the documentary for. But there's stuff that I did not include in the book that will be in the documentary. So don't think that we didn't save something. And I wasn't that I saved it. It was just not my place to tell.
Sure. Well, man, I'm a fan of your family. You obviously have a very heroic family. But give one pitch for the book. What's the book? Why should people buy the book? Where can they buy the book?
All right, you can go to Amazon and you can buy the book it sells $20. I think like it's $18.77 right now, but I mean it's listed as $20 or $19.99. The Kindle version is $9.99, so you can get the Amazon paperback or you can get the Kindle version through Amazon. Now, if you want a signed copy and you live in the United States, you can email me. I just put in an order for 25 more books. So you can email me and PayPal or Venmo me $25. The extra $5 is for the shipping and handling. That way you can get a signed copy. So either one. But the one thing I'll say about my book, and sometimes I'll sign this, I will guarantee this will be the best book on child rape, kidnapping, and murder you have ever read.
No shit. And like I said before the show, I haven't had time to make it through the whole book. I definitely skimmed it. I've read several chapters.
I would, if you want to do me a favor, it won't take you long. I know you got a bunch of kids and you're, just now pretend like you're moving a little wrong. Just read the last 3 chapters. Because I realized at the last 3 chapters that I wasn't done. Right. I thought I was done. And I was like, I haven't mentioned anything after 1985. So I was like, I got to let people know Daddy died. And then that's where I talk about the Dallas Cowboys. So I think you'll enjoy that last 3 chapters.
Hey, man, I'm a big Dallas Cowboys fan, brother. Absolutely 100%. Hey, the book is called Why, Gary, Why? Jody, you're the man. I cannot tell you enough how much I appreciate the joy and the work that you do and your family. And I'm just absolutely happy that you chose to come on. Thank you again, brother.
I'm glad you had me on. And look, anytime if you need anything, need another guest or another topic, I like to cook. I'm at the Cajun Ninja today.
Oh, dude. Hey, I also like to cook, man. It's like my therapy, bro.
Do you know who the Cajun Ninja is?
I don't know.
Oh, he's got an incredible YouTube channel. All right, so I'm working for my friends. I'm helping them out. They have a meat, like a specialty meat store with stuffed chickens and steaks and stuffed pork tenderloins. And the Cajun Ninja just came out with a season. He has a YouTube channel, and 5 years ago he made a chicken and sausage gumbo. Okay, and he got 45 million views on that video on a chicken and sausage gumbo. And so he kind of blew up.
True.
And so he's very, very popular. And hey, he's a Louisiana guy. He's nice as can be. But yeah, I like to cook. So if you want, if you're ever doing like something with cooking, maybe we can get the Cajun Ninja on, and then we can talk about gumbo and seafood.
I support it. We can do a special cooking show. It'll be a lot of fun. And I just finally got around to going to Louisiana for the first time in 2017, man. It's a really cool place, and the food is fucking phenomenal.
Where'd you go?
I went to New Orleans.
I'm guessing
New Orleans. Yeah, I actually went twice. I went 2017 and 2018. It was I sit on the Libertarian Party's national committee, and so I was there for the Louisiana State Convention of the Libertarian Party, and then we had our national convention there in 2018, and I was running for chairman of the party, so I got to go twice, man, and I had a fucking blast. But the first time I went there, I showed up and WrestleMania was in town, and I couldn't find a hotel because I went on like a last minute's notice, and I ended up staying in the French Quarter at this like little rundown like motel where there's like people like overdosing in the lobby and shit. It was fucking rough, dude.
All right, so you'll I know you got to go.
No, we're good, man. Go ahead.
But I got a good story for you. So a couple of weeks ago, I had done an interview with this other guy who had a podcast, and he sends me a text message. He goes, "Have you seen the Dark Side of the Ring about Jake the Snake Roberts?"
Oh, dude.
And I was like, "No." He goes, "You need to watch it." I said, "I'll watch it today." So that day, I went and I watched. Have you seen it?
On Peacock TV? Yeah. I watched some of it. It's like it's a series, right?
Yeah, where his dad, but Jake the Snake Roberts' dad was like this child molester, molested him, molested his brother, molested his sister, molested the whole family, molested the neighbors. He just molested everybody he came with. But he was like big dude, and he was like kind of the promoter. So these people had to put up with his shit. So I watched that, and I was like, you know what? I said, I want to get Jake the Snake Roberts a book. So I went online and I Googled Jake the Snake Roberts to see if there's like a .com or how to contact me. I guess kind of like maybe you did me.
Sure,
so I'm looking for information on Jake the Snake Roberts. I'm going to Twitter. I'm going to Instagram. And I get a Jake at jakethesnakeroberts.com email address. It's a dead link. And so I was like, well, let me reach out to his sister. Well, no. All right, so here's what happened. So then my brother, the one that likes calling me, that called me twice, he called me up and I said, have you seen this Jake the Snake Roberts documentary? I was like, you got to check it out. It's really good. He goes, I'll check it out. He goes, his sister and brother came to my show. He plays music. He goes, they came to my show a couple of years ago. He goes, I got a picture with him and everything.
Oh, wow.
I was like, where? He goes, in Denham Springs. That's the town just outside of Baton Rouge. I'm like, in Denham Springs? And both of these people were on the documentary. His sister was Rockin' Robin, and his brother was Sam Houston. And so he goes, yeah, Sam Houston and Rockin' Robin, they were at my show. I'm like, well, I know you're telling the truth because I never knew Jake the Snake Roberts had a sister. And so he's like, no. So I was like, well, let me find out about Jake the Snake's sister. Turns out she went to high school in Baton Rouge. She lives in Baton Rouge.
Oh, shit.
So we met up and I gave her a copy of the book.
That's so cool, man. How cool
is
that?
But she was going out of town, and she printed it up because I sent her a digital copy because I knew we weren't going to be able to meet up and give her a physical copy. And she printed it up. She said she was reading it on a plane, and people were like, "Oh, did you write a book?" And she's like, "No, I'm just reading it." She printed it up on regular paper, and she was nice as can be. I mean, she was a wonderful, wonderful person. Very, very nice.
That's awesome. I'm a big wrestling fan, I've actually been watching The Undertaker's Last Ride, which is on Peacock too. It's like a series about that he finally like is unmasked and showing his real life and stuff. It's wild, man. If you've been an Undertaker fan ever in your life, it's a good one. But
did you get to the part in my book where I was talking about my sister when she fought Stormy Daniels?
I think that's right where I stopped, right around where I stopped reading. That's in what chapter? What chapter is that? Like
that's like my family. I think it's called My Family. But anyway, I mentioned Coco Samoa and the Junkyard Dog. Those were like two of our favorite wrestlers growing up. So I was like, yeah, that's cool. So Jake the Snake Roberts' sister gets to read that. I was a wrestling fan growing up. And so, my grandmother, she used to sell jewelry to Sylvester Ritter. And if you're a true wrestling fan, you know who Sylvester Ritter is. He's better known as the Junkyard Dog.
Yeah.
And so I thought I was so cool when I was like 7, 8 years old, because my grandmother knew the Junkyard Dog, and I knew the Junkyard Dog's name was Sylvester Ritter. I thought I had some information that no other kid had, and I thought I was the shit.
Yeah, I was a big Junkyard Dog fan. I recently started going back and looking at all my like childhood WWF heroes, and I was very sad to find that most of them are dead.
Yeah, it's funny too, because I never knew that about Jake Roberts, and I knew that he went off on drugs and was just kind of done, like he was just done as a person.
Right. Yeah.
And watching that documentary, I was like, well, that explains why. It makes sense, it makes sense why he was such a train wreck.
Yeah.
But yeah,
but there's a lot of them. I think a lot of them, they had these really early heart attacks because of the back in the 80s.
And the steroids and all that. Yeah, the wrestlers were a mess. It's not a good longevity.
Yeah, no, absolutely not, man. And then there was a lot with mental illness. Of course, Chris Benoit famously killed his whole family and himself, and I was a big Chris Benoit fan. So, it's rough. My
favorite moment was the Iron Sheik and Hacksaw Jim Duggan getting caught in the hotel room smoking weed.
That's old school, dude.
That's my favorite wrestling moment. These were the two biggest adversaries. You had the Oklahoma Big John Studd with whatever, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and then he's representing America, and you have the Iron Sheik who's he's Iranian, he's Muslim, and then you think they hate each other, but meanwhile they're traveling from show to show together and getting high.
And of course, both of them are still alive, Hacksaw Jim Duggan and the Iron Sheik. And if you don't follow the Iron Sheik on Twitter, you have to go follow the Iron Sheik.
Iron Sheik, yeah.
He's the funniest dude on Twitter. He literally just pops on and says, "Fuck you all," and then takes off like all the time. It's hilarious. I don't know what's going on with that old man, but he is hilarious. Hey, before we go, I want to address some of these super chats. Michael Ravel, member for 3 months. Thanks a lot, bro. He said he just ordered the book for his wife and I. They have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. This shit terrifies him more than anything. He appreciates your victim advocacy. Level 0, $5 super chat. Thanks, man. He said, thank you, Jody, for this openness about all this. Definitely picking up your book. Shannon Lee, $5 super chat. Thank you. She said, thank you for sharing your story and being an advocate. And your dad is a motherfucking hero. Thank you for missing your game for us. Awesome. But yeah, man, like I said, I'm a big fan. I am definitely going to be hitting you up for the signed copy. I want the signed copy for my shelf back here, if that's all right with you. Where can people follow you, support you, all that great stuff?
Well, I see you got my Twitter handle going, but someone reached out on Twitter to me the other day. Some professor at the University of Massachusetts Lowell wants me to do like one of these for his class, and another old coworker, she's a teacher. She wants me to do like a little Zoom thing, talk about writing a book. But Jody Plauche Facebook, you can go at J Plauche Twitter.
Website too, right?
No, jodyplauche.net. Yeah, that's where you can see the unedited version of the shooting. And again, it's got all my email addresses and links, and I'm the easiest person to find.
Yeah, I'll get that.
If you can't get in touch with me, you can't get in touch with nobody.
Yeah, I was happy to find a way to reach out to you, brother. Like I said, I wanted to know more about the story, and I think you really laid out a lot here, and I think everyone's going to be happy. We'll definitely have to do some more shows, man. Maybe we'll figure out we'll do like a Christmas cooking special. That might be fun, dude.
Like some demonstrations or something.
Yeah, something, man. Hey, thank you so much for coming on, man. Like I said, I'll get back to you about getting this book signed. I definitely want that copy, and I'll get your website up in the link in the description here, so people can check out that video and all your other links and stuff.
And when you read the last 3 chapters, text me and let me know what you think. I'm curious.
I will. I got your phone number, brother. Hey, thanks again.
Right.
Thanks again for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me. Y'all have a good night.
You too. All right, guys. Go check Jody's book out, Why Gary Why. It's going to chronicle all this stuff, much more detail than we could get into in the hour we had here, but it's a great book of what I've read. I can't wait to finish it. Definitely going to read those final 3 chapters tomorrow while I'm at work and give Jody a call. But go follow him. Support the man. I mean, he's doing the Lord's work. Seriously. I mean, he really is doing great work. Hopefully we can get that movie made. And if not, then we have a more ammo for the pedophiles in Hollywood, because you know how much I hate those people. Guys, before we go, tomorrow on the show, I'm going to have Drew Hancock on the show, returning the show to make up for the recorded show that was supposed to come out while I was at Disney World. But we only got like 9 minutes recorded for some reason. I don't know what happened. It's my bad. I boomered the tech. I know you're all shocked. But Drew will be back on the show. We love Drew. It's going to be a great show. Wednesday, I'm still working on booking the show. On Thursday, Reed Coverdale will come on to talk about him being banned from Twitter again, and probably because of the pedophiles at Twitter. And on Friday, you will have another Top Lobster Joshua Smith Break the Cycle episode. So it's going to be a great week. I hope you guys will stick around. Go check out our sponsors, of course, toplobster.com, the man, the myth, the legend, my good friend and partner on Break the Cycle, where you can get this great Dr. Ron Paul for Congress 1974 hoodie t-shirt that I'm wearing tonight by using BTC at checkout for a 10% discount. Or you can become a member of the Patreon, the Subscribe Star, or the YouTube channel. Become a member there, and you can get into a private Discord server where you can get all of Top Lobster's new hand-drawn gear up to 2 weeks before it goes to the general public at like a 30% discount. Great stuff. I promise you it's worth it. And of course, executive producers of the show, anthemplanning.com, for all your emergency and crisis planning needs. Check them out today. See what they can do for your business, home, or personal life. They're doing a wonderful job that the government has historically sucked at. Much cheaper and much more efficiently. Seriously, if you guys own a business, or you know somebody who owns a business, or you got family members that own a business, go tell them about Anthem Planning. Let's hype them up, man. They're good people. We had Amy Lepore on the show. She's the owner. She's amazing. I promise you, they're all above board, and they're gonna do something great for you. I'll see you tomorrow night, man. I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be doing 5 shows a week. I know we had to take a couple off last week, but this week we'll have 5 shows, and we're back into the swing of things. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me through my vacation for my family. Thanks for coming and checking out the show tonight. I know that some of the topics were a little rough for everyone to digest, but as a father, I think they're things that people need to hear and need to prepare for. But I'll see you tomorrow for the show with Drew Hancock. Until then, don't forget to break the cycle.
Due to legal reasons, I just have to explain. The lyrics of my last song may seem to contain a violent call to action in the verse and refrain, but I just meant it in Minecraft. The helicopter part was in reference to GTA 5 and the things you do. So any violence you commit, I am not an excuse, because I just meant it in Minecraft. Well, Chipper is my friend and he's constantly cold. Accusations of incitement getting totally old. Make your own choices, yeah, you have control, because I just meant it in Minecraft. Obviously, I would never advocate force unless there's due process and a trial, of course. And if you're convicted, we will make you a corpse in Minecraft, just in Minecraft. Nothing I mean, you know it. No product